Hi, this is Stephen Meade, lifelong entrepreneur, business owner, and global speaker. Over the years, I've read hundreds of books and spent thousands of hours developing what I call the BullsEye Belief System. And I've used that system to develop my own companies, as well as help others learn to be specific, targeted, and focused to get exactly what they want in life. Again, I'm Stephen Meade, and this is the BullsEye Guy podcast.
Welcome to the BullsEye Guy podcast. I'm Swedish Egil. This is Stephen Meade, and in this episode, we're going to get to know Stephen Meade. How you doing, and welcome.
Doing great, thank you. This is going to be fun.
I know, it's going to be, as I welcome you to your own show. But I wanted you to start out by telling us who you are and what your background is.
Yeah, and I joke that I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I've never had a job. And part of that is I discovered early on in college that I was unhireable.
Okay, and why was that?
I didn't know. I had no idea until many years later, which we'll get into. I did a lot of sales training. What I learned is I was taking these personality profile tests in college, and I am a nonconformist. Okay. Meaning I don't think inside of a box. I don't follow a set of rules and regulations.
Right.
And if I were going to hire me in my own company, I wouldn't hire me to do hardly anything. So I wasn't having much success in college, and that led me into a life of entrepreneurism.
Okay. And what is a BullsEye Guy?
Well, when I was 22, I actually started out, I did retail stores in college, and I went into writing some books. I joke that I wrote 3 books when I was 20. And the reality, there's always stories behind the stories. I wrote 1 book on how to improve your credit. And I actually didn't even write the book. My accountant was doing credit improvement, and I looked at what he was doing, and my mind just works on how do you duplicate and double and scale things. And I went, well, this is kind of dumb. Let's take all of his forms. And I put it together, and I wrote some stories around it, and we were selling that in what became an infomercial.
Oh, okay. Wow.
All right. But with the infomercial now, everybody that's seen them, there's a very famous phrase whenever you see something on television. We have this, and then you get, but wait, there's more.
Right.
I didn't have a there's more. I wrote a book. So it was actually 3 different chapters. And what I did is I split out the chapters, put a brand new cover on it. So now it looked like I had 3 books.
Okay.
All right, but that to your question, what it led me to was I learned that I was good at sales, I was good at marketing, I was good at being creative. And when I was 22, I went to work with a financial services company that was what became Travelers Group. These were some of the biggest players on the planet: Sandy Weil, Pete Dawkins, Jamie Dimon, just big guys.
Wow.
And over that time, I joked that it was a sales cult.
Okay.
and it actually really was a sales cult, but it was an amazing sales cult. And what I did over that time is I read 357 books.
Oh my God.
In 6.5 years.
Okay.
And anytime you tell people I read 100, one, they doubt you, but it's pretty simple. And this is again where I started developing this system that's called a BullsEye Belief System. Is how do you simplify things down? And it was easy. The goal was to read a book a week. And if you read 1 book a week for 6.5 years, you're over 350 books.
Right.
But the goal was to take that book, dissect out the elements that I could teach my sales force. And it was just like sports. I grew up playing sports in college, and the goal was to build skill sets every week. And whether you repeated the same skill every week to get better or you built and learned new ones, sales training was kind of the same thing.
Yeah. How did you know what books to read?
Well, that's where it was fun. The guys that I was working with, these guys, and I won't mention their name, they may or may not like it, but they were brilliant guys. One guy was 26 at the time, making $350,000 a year. This was years ago in Kansas City. The other guy was 28 or 29, making about $600,000. And they had just developed a process. But what we did is we just picked different books. And over time, I was picking my own. And it was sales and psychology, and it was motivation, and it was palm reading and horoscopes and astrology. It was trying to dissect how people think, because our goal was to motivate them to come work for us. And you can't motivate somebody if you don't know how they think.
Right.
And it ranged from, Tony Robbins and some of the masters. We used to pick up Tony Robbins in Kansas City and Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy and just the Tom Hopkins. A lot of these guys are legendary.
Yeah.
And I grew up in this environment that was not only consistently competitive, but then I learned how to start dissecting down and targeting, just like a bullseye. The outside of the bullseye, a lot of people can hit it if you're trying to shoot a bow and arrow. You may not hit it every time, but as you practice, you get better and better, and the goal is to hit that target.
Yeah.
And that target's about being specific and focused and getting exactly what you want every time. And we just developed a lot of techniques, and then I end up developing my own system over many, many years.
Oh, okay. So hence the BullsEye Guy.
The BullsEye Guy, yes.
All right. So is there a place where people can go and find out more about what you're doing, read about what you have done? And
yeah, and what I've done is just tried to consolidate it down. Through the years, I've launched, I think, 11 companies. I'm not entirely sure. I've used this system to build all my own companies. So I start the idea, and our social was a little bit fragmented. And the BullsEyeGuy.com just became the doorway, the panel. So when you land there, there's a panel that says videos. Again, this is about being specific. I didn't want to confuse people. It says videos.
right.
And when you land and click through, it's like walking through the door. And then the next page says, here's a list of videos organized, and here's the channels, and here's about the author, and here's companies we've created. And the BullsEye Blog, podcast panel will be there. And when you click on it, it will take you to the episodes we hope to create over time, and the videos and things like that. So it's designed to be a very simplistic organization of what is a unsophisticated, very complex life that I lead of things all over the place. We're going to condense it down to the bullseye.com and make it easier for people to find the information.
The BullsEyeGuy.com.
The bullseyeguy.com.
All right. I've memorized that now. So what is it exactly that you're doing?
Well, what I do, and this is where it's always been a little interesting, is I start my own companies. And my companies are designed, they're my ideas. I'm the first angel in. But I live by a tenet of 10 things that I want to accomplish in my life. So every idea I have, and we'll talk a lot about this in future episodes for entrepreneurs of how to make decisions, I create companies and ideas that help. I like helping other people be successful at what they're already doing. Mm-hmm. I like a certain kind of scale, and I build things. And the current one we're doing is in the world. It's in the world of blockchain and crypto. And again, we'll talk more about these things over time, but it's designed to be a global currency. And we want to be the first platform in the world for businesses to transact inside a marketplace. It's kind of like Amazon for business. So we've got a company, won 8 contests around the world, very targeted, again, bullseye on who our customer is and what the value proposition is and how we go to market. And that's what I do. I do a lot of that for my own companies inside our incubator. And then I help other people figure out how to be positive and specific and focused in their own life, whether it's something personal or business, or how to target what they should be doing, or who their target market is for a customer or a board member or a potential funder. People just in this day and age aren't specific, and they aren't focused. And a lot of it isn't that they don't want to be, they just don't know how.
Yeah, how to get focused.
Yeah, and I've developed, again, very, very simple techniques that we'll share and unfold over time. A lot of the things I'm able to walk somebody through can be understood in 2 minutes. Now, it might take 2 hours or 2 days or 2 weeks for you to get good at it and do the research components, but conceptually, I joke a lot when I give speeches that there's 3 types of speakers, all these people that talk on stage.
Yeah.
There's people who provide inspiration. Look how great I am, and if you do it, you can be all these things. And there's people that provide aspiration. If you do these things, you too can be great.
Right.
And then you leave, and I want to be educated. I don't, if I'm inspired to be a better cook, and I hate cooking, but if I was inspired to be a better cook, I leave. If I don't know how to cook, it's irrelevant.
Right.
So the education component to me is what's important, and I'm providing a lot of education. And then underneath there, that education, again, I use food, and I know you guys have a great podcast with John Sutton and the truth in food and things, but I've learned there's a difference between baking and cooking.
Yeah.
My understanding is cooking, you can be creative and pinches of this and dashes of that. Baking is very specific. It's a specific ingredient in a specific order. And if you're baking a cake and it's milk and eggs and in the oven for 45 minutes, you can't put it in the oven and then add milk and eggs later.
Right, exactly.
Business is about specific, focused, targeted. Some of these things are ingredients that if you know the ingredients, then you can go practice and get better.
Right.
I'm about teaching the ingredients. I'm going to educate on how people can be more focused to get what they want.
And this doesn't matter what kind of business. You can do anything from a car mechanic to, let's say that somebody's doing internet radio or
internet radio, car mechanic, book author, accountant, attorney. We were with some nonprofits this morning that just didn't understand who their target market was, of who they were going after. It's really, it can be used for anything, even down to I'm not the best on relationship coaching and things like that, and I don't want to be, but even trying to figure out, what do you really like in life? If you're looking for something in a partner, how can you be more specific of what you like and don't like, and what are those tools to identify that? Business is a great one, though. Business for me is easy, whether it's an entrepreneur trying to decide which company to go after. There's filters that I can teach on how to say, here's how you make better decisions. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a company trying to grow and add board members or investing, or whether it's a big company that's saying, who do we go after for a new target market? It doesn't matter. The BullsEye system and the belief system translates across everything because it's not really mine. It's hundreds of books and thousands of hours. I've just distilled all of this down into techniques that I can implement and teach to others.
Targeted a system.
Targeted, specific, focused, isolated.
Okay. So let's say that I'm an entrepreneur and I do have a lot of questions. How do I contact you, and how long do you need to work with me before I can be on my own?
Wow. And I appreciate that question because, to be clear, I'm not a consultant. I'm not trying to get hired. I tell people I'm great over an hour.
Okay.
I can help anybody in an hour with the techniques and the questions. I know what questions to ask that person may not understand. And then I can give them some of the tools and the directions to send them down their way. But in terms of actually being hired, I don't do that. I pick a few companies I want to be involved with to help grow. But a lot of the systems that I've developed will roll out over the BullsEyeGuy.com. We'll roll it out here through the BullsEye podcast. We'll add some other content in and exercises and things people will be able to do that allows them to be much more self-serving at their pace.
Right.
And again, I appreciate the question. It's about scale. If I'm interviewing and helping one person, I can't scale. If I can get that system out there, it's not one person, it's 1,000 that can learn it at their own pace.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to do is we've got a lot of information we'll start translating out, and people can use it at their leisure.
So you don't really need to meet this entrepreneur in person. If they go to the BullsEyeGuy.com, they can start clicking around and get information and help them out that way.
Yeah, and just as a quick example, I've got 10 steps. And one of the steps is very easy to understand. One of the big premises of the BullsEye is being specific, right? And I call it your 5 peeps. If I ask somebody what you do, they're going to describe to me what they do. And I tell people, what you do is irrelevant. I don't care.
Okay.
And again, people look at me, well, how do you not care? What I mean by that is, just like when you and I were talking earlier, you go, what you do here at the studio is amazing, but at the end, I like you. I think this is cool. I don't care what you do. I need to know what you need.
Right.
And what you need is this system. I was even asking you, you may not have even known I was doing it. And basically one of the techniques, and we'll put some graphics up on it, says, outside at the edge, what's the emotional value of what you do? And if I were to do it with you, I'd say at the studio, what do you do that's really cool? What do people love about you?
Right.
Because we make decisions emotionally and defend them logically. So I want you to have a catchphrase that says, oh, at the studio, we do this. And people go, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Then I'll go, all right, what are the 2 or 3 biggest industries you're interested in, right? If somebody just says music is too broad. It's I like country, I like DJ, I like hip hop, I like dance, I like trance, I like EDM. Mm-hmm. So we start narrowing down to what are those industries you want to focus on. And this is for any company or any business. What are your industries? Within there, who are the 3 to 5 companies that you want to partner with or do business with? And within those companies, what's the title of the person? I have people come to me, oh, I want to do business with Disney. And I say, who? Disney has 87,000 employees. If somebody came to you and said, I want to be in the music industry, you're going to, because you know the industry, you're going to go, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
There's 1,000 roles in the music industry. Is it a sound engineer? People go, well, no, I want to be a musician. Well, how? What? So they don't know how to distill. And this BullsEye platform system says, what's the industry? What are the companies? What's the title? And then who are the 3 to 5 people by name that you want to meet right now? Because if I like what you do and I know the person you want to meet, that's what you do. What you do isn't the studio. What you do is you need these 5 guys to interview.
Right.
And that kind of technique can be used for almost anything, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a wedding planner, whether it's a startup or a Fortune 500 CEO. It's a system where you can spend time and understand it. That research of what it takes is where you have to go do it on your end. But I can give you that tool set to be able to go do it.
Right. So how common is it for young and upcoming entrepreneurs to kind of maybe know a little bit about what they want to do, but not be familiar with the techniques that you're talking about? It sounds like you can help a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah, and a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, struggle in 3 areas. One area is they don't really know what they want to be as an entrepreneur. So, I'll ask them all the time, well, what do you want you want to be a business or a company? Mm-hmm. They don't understand the difference. Well, there's a difference between a business that might have 30, 40, 50 people and you can manage and gives you a lifestyle and lets you go home at 5 or 6 o'clock versus a company with 30, 40, 50,000 people where you're managing a different complex set of relationships. And there's a difference between a business and a company. There's a difference with what somebody wants as an outcome. How long do they want to be involved in something? And even before that, I asked the most simple question of financial independence. Why are you doing this? And money's not always the best motivator, but my philosophy, again, I'll have a lot of sayings through the time. Money makes you more of what you already are.
Okay.
If you have a lot of money, and pardon my French, if you're an ass, you're a big ass with money. If you're insecure, though, think of some of the most famous people, the Michael Jacksons, the Howard Hughes. The more money you have, the more insecure you become. But if you're generous, you become much more generous. You become much more benevolent. So money's the great equalizer for our personality. But we're taught that it could be bad.
Right.
And so when I talk to people about being financially independent, again, BullsEye specific, people don't have a number. An entrepreneur needs to have a number. They need to have a specific number of how much money they want to have saved to live off the interest and never have to work again. And until we get to that number, we can't even figure out what kind of company they want to build.
Okay.
If their number's 3 million, that's a different kind of company than 30 million or 300 or 3 billion. I don't care what their number is, but if they don't have a number, then the company's ideas don't make sense.
Right.
Because a company idea may not get them to that number. And so it's about designing these not end of life, but 10-year out experiences that says, what do you want to make? What kind of income? What kind of people do you want to hang around with? Let's develop some criteria and help the entrepreneur move through the needle to figure out what they want and then help them build steps along the way.
As you look to some of the companies that you built yourself, what would you say is the most successful one where you applied your own ideas?
Wow, and I appreciate that question because this is one I use all the time in an example, and it's a great one to start the show with. Again, 22, 23, 24 years old, I learned about goal setting. And one of the goals I had was when I was 33, I wanted to have a company worth $1 billion.
Okay, wow.
And that was one of 8 or 9 goals, but one of my companies was I wanted a company worth $1 billion. And I do this with students a lot. Anybody that's ever seen me in school, I've got videos of it. I walk up on the board and I write X. So my goal was I wanted a company worth X. But I tell the students, I tell everybody, the universe gives you exactly what you ask for. If you work for it, the universe gives you exactly what you ask for. It means you better be very specific in your ask. Again, this is where I started learning these things, narrowing it down. So This particular company I started in the early mid 90s, I guess, 96, was an internet company, e-commerce.
Okay.
E-commerce didn't exist for anybody old enough to remember. There were barely websites. There was no shopping cart, no online. And the moral of it very quickly is I created a company in 1996. We were the first master merchant in the world for credit card processing, sort of what became PayPal many years later. But we took the company through a public transaction. I was in my 30s, and I had a company. When I turned 33, that company was worth $980 million.
Very close to that billion.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Right? But then I turn to the students and I say, that wasn't what I asked for. And there's silence in the room. And then I question them. I'm like, wait a minute, look at this. Here's X. Stephen, me, I wanted a company worth X. I wanted a company worth $1 billion. Not that I think I need to be that. It was, if I made a lot of money, I know what I would do for everybody else. This was about all the things I want to do for everybody else. So not about me being money motivated because I want to be that. It was for other people. But when I ask them, I say, what did I ask for that was wrong? And they don't always get it. And I go up and I write a big Y underneath the X. And I say, why? Why is Stephen, me, only worth 8% of that public company? I only owned 8% of that stock. Why could I not sell it for a year? I was in my 30s. I didn't know what's called a 144 restriction, which means as a public shareholder, you can't sell your own stock for a year.
Okay.
I also didn't know what was called a tech bubble. There was this weird thing called a tech bubble that happened in 2000.
Yes.
I had never been through a tech bubble. I didn't know things would burst.
Right.
So having a company worth X and Stephen's worth Y, as in why do I only own 8%? Why can't I sell my stock? Why is the tech bubble bursting? The company value was irrelevant to what I thought I wanted, which was a personal net worth.
Right.
So when I talk about learning these things, I've learned some of them the hard way. I've worked my butt off for 10 years. I asked for the wrong thing.
Okay.
So a lot of these systems I've developed from some of my own
Now, looking
mistakes.
back at it, what should you have asked for?
A personal net worth of X with liquid money in my account that nobody else can touch and has no encumbrances on.
Okay. All right.
Meaning basically it's mine in my name and nobody else can have any encumbrances on it. I should have asked for a personal net worth of X, not a company worth X. The company value was irrelevant.
Right, I understand.
And so even now with the current one, I have a personal net worth in this company we're trying to build. And if it works, great. If not, I'm in the game having fun. And people will ask me, oh, well, what do you think it's going to be worth? And my comments, I don't care. If I build enough value of what I want personally out of it, I know the accretive on top of it is going to be some number bigger than what I want personally, which means I've built a very valuable, successful company.
Right. Do you have any other success stories, like outside of building your own company, that you've done for somebody else that you're really proud of?
Well, a lot of them we've done. Gosh, there's different ones through some of the charities that we've worked with, where we've helped. We've got a new one coming on the pet industry, which we've helped them target exactly who they want from a charity standpoint with funders that we've done. We had another company that we started actually that did relatively well in the mobile space. We were the first company in the world to insert audio messages in a cell phone call and roll that out globally around the world. First and only company that was ever able to do that. So there's been some that have been successful. There's been others that we started with all of the best intentions and looked great, and for one reason or another don't make it.
Right.
And those are the ones that are fun to talk about as well. So we're not only going to talk about some of the successes, we'll talk about some of the misses and things that we've learned along the way.
And what do you say to somebody who tried, missed? How do you sort of come back from that?
Well, because I fortunately have done this for so many years on the speaking side, I have this in some of my slides with the students. And this is how I used to end the slides. I would say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be prepared for a lot of people telling you, no, it's not going to work. Go get a job. All the things I heard growing up is, what if it doesn't work? What if this? And so what I used to have to say, I don't say it anymore, but I still don't mind. And it takes a little chutzpah. I would look at somebody and say, Eagle, if you and I were doing this, you know what? You're right. Might not make it. The company I'm doing, if it doesn't make it, you're right. But if it does, I change my family tree forever. I retire my parents early. I send my brother on a vacation. I put a college fund for his kids. I do Secret Santas for people on TV. I get to fly my guys around that I play soccer with in a private plane to places they've never been. If I make it, my life will be amazing.
Right, okay.
But if I fail, I can always go get a job and I'll be just like you.
Yeah, right. So, you work with so many different companies. Is there one that stands out that you had the most fun with?
The most fun with?
Yeah, that you just really enjoyed every moment of working with that. Was that in finance? Maybe not in cooking or baking, but...
Yeah, actually, all of them I've started have been fun. They're just not all of them have worked. Because if I'm going to work this hard, it's going to be over something I'm passionate about that I hope it works. The current one, Moneta Pro, that we're doing, is technically a global currency. And if we talk about it, because of what's going on in crypto and a lot of things now, there's quite a bit of resonance and momentum. It's the same idea that I tried to do in the year 2000. Everybody thought it was crazy. Oh, you can't do a global currency. So I have ideas that I didn't give up on.
Right.
I have another one that we tried years ago called the Wet Rock, which we'll bring back. It's a box that drops in the tank of a toilet and saves water. I can save water, plastic, power, pollution, and money in 60 seconds. A consumer never changes their habits.
Wow.
We'll probably crowdsource and win a Nobel Peace Prize. Like I've built big, ambitious goals. Sometimes people aren't ready. We were doing that in 2005, 6, 7, 8. Nobody cared about the environment and social impact investing wasn't there. Now it is.
Yeah.
And so there's ways to repurpose and retarget things that maybe didn't work before, but it just comes down to timing. And so, yeah, all of them are fun. They just don't all work. Some do.
And how do you find out? Like, let's say that you get an idea and then you go, I don't really know if the world is ready for this yet. I think and hope so, but I'm not really sure. I'm going to ask Stephen Meade.
Wow. So that earlier in the program, I said I have 10 steps within the BullsEye Belief System. That particular one, I believe, is step number 8.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is what's fun is entrepreneurs who ask me questions, I'm like, yeah, that's step 3. That's step 4, deflect, defer, and disclose. In that particular one, it's called take meetings early and often. If I have an idea, I'll take meetings very, very early with people who are potential customers, people who are potential board members, people who have shown success in the area I want to be. And I'll target specific people who are very successful that I want to talk to. But there's 3 key indicators when I go to that person. 1, I don't go to them trying to sell them on the idea and how great it is. The first question that I tell an entrepreneur to ask, this is critical. Want to guess?
Maybe how much do you want to make? How much do you want to get out of this?
If I'm going to tell somebody as an entrepreneur is going to market with their company and they're going to talk to somebody or how they get started, the question is, why won't this work?
Okay.
I go into companies beating up the idea because the reality is when you go to marketing, say, hey, I've got this great idea. I want to be this kind of DJ or I'm going to write this book. Most people look and go, oh, that's cool. Hey, yeah, great. Good luck doesn't help you.
Right.
That's great. Doesn't move the needle because in the real world with people who don't know you, they're going to throw all the crap on you.
Right.
I'd rather ask for all the crap up front in a positive way. So if I go to somebody like you, if I wanted to be a DJ and follow in your footsteps, I wouldn't say, hey, here's how great I am. I'd say, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Here's the space. Why won't this work? What am I missing? Who else is doing this? What's my competition? How hard is this going to be? If I want to get on the radio, who do I go to? What's the best way? I want to know all of the reasons that are really going to be the objections when I go to market, because If I ask you the negative in a positive way, you're much more inclined to be honest with me because I'm asking for that feedback.
Right.
If I just tell you I want to be this great DJ, you don't want to crush my dreams, I get nothing out of that.
Right.
So I take meetings early and often. I go in humbly saying, here's what we're building. Why won't this work? What would it take to one day do business with you? I like building those relationships before we're ready for them. But it's a lot of feedback of going in saying, why won't this work? What am I missing? Because those are the real objections.
Yeah.
Most people just run forward in a little filter bubble thinking they've got the answers because everybody tells them it's a great idea.
And that's not reality.
That's not reality.
So you've spoken a lot about speaking in front of students. So if there's a student listening now hoping that you're going to come to their college or university, do you go to a lot? Do you travel all over America? Where can you find out where you're going to be going next?
Yeah, and I talk to colleges a lot because I like instilling that in the entrepreneurial side at that age because they're still a little more coachable. And we've done big companies. I've spoken in front of 30,000 people, and I've spoken in front of 3.
Okay.
But I do travel the world a lot. So there's often times where I have friends that are professors or give us introductions. If I'm in another city, if I get an opportunity to speak, for me, it's about not only giving back because I don't charge. I'm not a consultant. I'm not trying to sell a program or service. I like translating this information back to other people. But I'm also bullseye altruistic and opportunistic, meaning I'll tailor the examples of what I'm talking about to the audience, but I'll build into that presentation the ask of what that audience can do for me.
Okay.
So if I'm talking to a bunch of students in international marketing, I may use in my 10-step example the companies who I want to partner and do business with that I think they have access to.
Okay.
If I'm doing something at a college around social media, my ask becomes around our social media company and the people I want to meet. So to me, it's condensing timeframes. I can spend an hour at a class at Harvard or MIT or UCLA or USC or Peter Hewitt Institute in Nebraska. I love these guys. It's condensing timeframes. For me, it's an hour to talk to 30, 40, 50, 100, 300 people who now know what I do and what I need. So I don't mind doing it. I love the transfer, but what I get out of it is more people know what I do, but they specifically know what I need.
Okay. And again, to see where you're going to be speaking next, thebullseyeguy.com.
TheBullsEye.com, and actually you just gave me a great example because the website has panels on it, videos, social contact. We'll probably create one just from that question.
Okay.
That says upcoming events because I like it to be simple and targeted. Somebody will click on it. Yeah, the things we have coming up are some great stuff. We're probably going to do Abu Dhabi with SALT, which is Anthony Scaramucci and the Skybridge Capital. SALT's an amazing group that does a lot with high business and finance. We're just on the phone with Dr. Abdallah Kablan from Malta. We're going to do the Delta Summit in Malta coming up in October. We're doing another event in Malta with Eamon Poulas. We're doing the Horias event in Lisbon or Portugal coming up. There's some big things we're doing around the world. Yeah, very fortunate with the places we get to go.
Yeah. Oh, the places, the colleges that you mentioned that you have been to, very impressive.
Well, I appreciate that. It's really just the relationships of people along the way. And as I said, I'm really good for an hour, and I can be helpful in an hour. Once it starts getting outside of that, I get a little bored. It's here's the information, here's the techniques, I'll help you, and then you go do the work and
report back to me.
We'll go do our own company. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's been very educational for me. Thank you for the opportunity for letting me ask you these questions here today. Again, my name is Swedish Egil. This is Stephen Meade, the BullsEye Guy. And for more information about this program, go to thebullseyeguy.com. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you.